Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. What I love so much about Brene Brown is the sincerity and universality of her work. Like, it's something that you digest, and it warmly invites you to access parts of yourself. Sugar! You smell so clean. Access parts of yourself that you'd rather not. I swear that no author whose book I've reviewed so far does this as well as her. As a self-described shame researcher, Brene Brown continues to blaze a trail of self-exploration and expression that is deeper than most popular music, TV shows, and movies today seem to endorse. By the way, she does this in a way that's not like, take a breath, sit down, breathe in that good-ass prana, baby. Nothing wrong with breathing in that good-ass prana, baby, but this is particularly, like, realistic and authentic. It's not like about like pretending everything's okay and visualizing. She says that she wants to open up a nationwide conversation about shame. Shame is intensely ingrained in our society, and Brene Brown used to work in data analysis. So for all the people who are like, what's with all these emotions? Where are the facts? Where are they? You know what? This is fake news. Brown delivers. Did I spin the camera? I'm sorry about that. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, thinking like that. I think that's actually a good thing. I think we should never stop searching for the truth. But this author just knows how to deliver emotional truths that others don't. My point is, her books serve a very unique role in the library of someone who loves like growing and learning about him or herself. I've reviewed other books of hers like Dare to Lead and Braving the Wilderness and The Power of Vulnerability, and in the next month, around the next month, I plan to review the rest. But sometimes even the best authors find themselves writing the same information on repeat. And this is something I must admit I'm a little bit worried. I feel like I'm always worried about things like this that Brene Brown can be guilty of from time to time. So in this video, and those other ones, I'm going to address that. Is this book a rehash? If so, how much of a rehash is it? What is it a rehash of? What is so amazing about Brene Brown's work? And why is it that when I meet her, the first thing I want to do is just give her a giant bear hug? And most importantly, Sam, just shut up and get to the point. What can you get out of this book? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Samuel, and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, then make sure to smash that like button, because I don't want to do it alone. Here is where the book's idea came from. It was a Roosevelt speech. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or how the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred in dust and sweat and blood, whose ears, I think, who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who brings enthusiasm to great devotions, who spins himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. Everything she learned from a decade of research, has taught her on vulnerability, has taught her this exact lesson. And Brene Brown did not come from like soft beginnings. She's a fifth-generation Texan with a family motto of lock and load. So from a young age, she developed vulnerability avoidance coping mechanisms. She knows what it's like to not want to open up because of her fear of what might happen if she does. And her coming from a side of the total opposite of what she teaches is what I think underlyingly makes her so effective as a teacher. And why is it that I resonate so much with her work? From a young age, I don't know what it was, but I developed this like armor of I can't let anyone get too close to me or I'm gonna get hurt. When I was 17 on January 27th, 2014, I self-harmed for the last time. I cried for hours and hours that day until my head started pounding. And the next time I cried was this last July, 6 years later. And the next time after that was 2 months later. And since then, I still have not cried, but I still question what is actually worth crying about. And just saying that out loud, it feels problematic. Merriam-Webster derives vulnerability from the Latin vulnerare, meaning to wound. To wound. The definition includes capable of being wounded and open to attack or damage. Weakness is defined as the inability to withstand attack or wounding. These are so different from each other. From a linguistic perspective alone, it's backwards to say that like saying sorry or crying are signs of weakness or anything like that. I guess it's understandable, but from experience, I can wholeheartedly tell you that it's dangerous. Like if you don't know what your blind spots are, I would make sure that that is not one of them. And here are her 4 myths about vulnerability. Spoiler alert. Actually, it's not that much of a spoiler because this is just the myths. The reasoning behind the myths is just, well, that's something else. Number 1, vulnerability is weakness. It's not. It takes courage to show vulnerability more than it takes not to show it. And not showing it continuously is just letting everything bubble up. And I mean, does that sound healthy? Number 2, I don't do vulnerability. Yes, you do, John. Everyone does vulnerability to some degree in some way. It's the source of too many unavoidable emotions. Number 3, vulnerability is letting all of everything just hang out. No, this is a cultural thing. It's important to understand, but like meeting strangers and just pouring out your life story to them,
I don't really think that's what she means.
Vulnerability is a mutual part of the trust building process. What many people think letting it all hang out means, that could actually be desperation, woundedness, or even attention seeking. Number 4, we can do it alone. I spent 3 years alone. Basically, all my time was spent either working, making music, or networking my music around social media. And life is really different when you're alone. This is a very long story, but all my music you can, like original music and most of the remixes I've done, you can find on my channel. I think that I was better at music than I still am at these reviews. So to anyone who's like, I wouldn't even consider listening to your music, you never know, you might be surprised. I may not make it anymore, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't impressed by what I made. The most striking part of the chapter, Understanding and Combating Shame, is where she talks about, and this kind of surprised me, about how like the differences between how men and women experience shame, which is something I would normally be like,
did the author truly have to explain this?
Like, is it that important for the sake of getting the point across? But she said that men, we have our own stories, and that if we're gonna find our way out of shame, it'll have to be together, which, I mean, a middle ground is something I always find myself applauding on this channel. So it's about men and women and how we hurt each other and how we need each other to heal. A lot of how women experience shame is typically, according to her research, it's about feeling like you're not good enough, and it stems from, more often than anything else, how a woman looks. A lot of how men experience shame is feeling weak in any way, and the author includes research and studies to validate this, but like, as far as I'm concerned, these stem more than anything from like biology. Nonetheless, I suppose this chapter surprised me because this isn't about like the differences between men and women's like dietary habits or the quality of our sleep or how one of them is more likely to develop dementia than the other. It's about how we experience shame, which is so unorthodox a topic. Like Brene Brown, like going into shame research, like that was really a niche right there. But I think that it's becoming more important to understand. I don't think that emotions are overrated like I used to, but I definitely still think that understanding emotions is underrated. Here's a section that stood out from the chapter Vulnerability Armory. It's about taking off the armor that we cultivated during our early childhood and young adulthood. From my personal experiences, the most difficult thing I can tell you from parenting a daughter in middle school is coming face to face with the awkward, sweaty palmed 7th grader who lives inside me. My instinct back then was to duck and run, and I often feel that impulse creeping up on me when Ellen, her daughter, is in struggle. I swear there are times when she's describing a situation at school that I can actually smell my middle school cafeteria. This chapter addresses so many odds and ends. She's addressed in other work like the side effects and roots and solutions to perfectionism and workaholism. What got my attention though was definitely where she started talking about customer service and how servers, like, it's becoming more common for servers to be like dehumanized and treated as a means rather than an end. To me, the reciprocity of negativity is just insane. Someday I'll make a video about this, about employees and customers and how this creates like a very toxic work environment for both of them, but like the existence of the term Karen, it makes sense. It shows that the scales have tipped.
But it's kind of shameful and destructive.
And I wonder still why every customer I've ever had named Karen turns out to be like a total sweetheart. What bothers me is rude customers and rude employees. Rude employees bothers me more, just for business reasons. We all have our reasons to give and be given the benefit of the doubt, but at the end of the day, it takes one to make the other. It takes one rude person to make another. And the same goes for customers, employees, with the complete opposite attitude. If you're in service and you had a terrible day and someone like went up to you and they were a customer and after they bought a donut or something, they said that you had the most beautiful eyes and they gave you a huge tip. The chapter Disruptive Engagement, Daring to Rehumanize Education and Work, this chapter is kind of scary, at least the beginning of it, and like in an illuminating way. Did you know that as of, what was it, like 2018 or something? 37% of the American workforce has been bullied at work. Work, not school. And that 45% of the time, the employer did nothing about it. When bullying happens, it has to be addressed, but not with shame. And the stories that follow this in the book, they honestly sound like miserable. Like, it is very dehumanizing. I'm in sales and I spend my time there. My mom's calling here. I gotta take that. I'm in sales and I spend my time there in a surprisingly humane work environment where the leaders read books like this one. A difference between Daring Greatly and her other books that I've reviewed so far is that this book talks a surprising amount, probably, maybe obviously, about shame. Braving the Wilderness teaches us about courage. Dare to Lead teaches us mainly about empathy. The Power of Vulnerability is, obviously, it's about power. I bet you thought I was gonna say vulnerability, but no, I actually was kidding. It's about vulnerability. She's known as a shame researcher, but often explores this particular variety of subjects. Meanwhile, this book teaches us primarily about shame. What I can say, however, after reviewing this book, and, well, after saying everything I just did say, is that I'm certainly excited to review the rest of her bibliography. Quotes. Social work isn't about fixing. It was and is all about contextualizing and leaning in. To be vulnerable is to feel. To believe vulnerability is weakness is to believe that feeling is weakness. It's crazy how much energy we spend trying to avoid these hard topics when they're really the only ones that can set us free. Before you say anything about those mean coaches, bosses, brothers, and fathers being the only ones, he pointed toward the back of the room where his wife was standing and said, "My wife and daughters, the ones you signed all those books for, they'd rather see me die on top of my white horse than watch me fall off." Asking members to dislike, disown, or distance themselves from a different group of people as a condition of belonging is always about control and power. Real belonging doesn't necessitate disdain. When they start having 12-step meetings for busyaholics, they'll need to bring out football stadiums. Everyone wants to know why customer service has gone to hell in a handbasket. I want to know why customer behavior has gone to hell in a handbasket. The only true currency in this bankrupt world is what you share with someone else when you're uncool. Direction 1. There are people who recognize the conviction that we are what we do is either good or bad. I'm sure many of you watching this are like, Sam, it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. What matters is what you make of it. I agree, but I recommend this book for anyone who sees it that way. Direction 2. If you like this book, the next Brene Brown book I'd recommend checking out, the next book I recommend checking out is easily Brene Brown, but I recommend The Power of Vulnerability. I think that one's an audiobook though, so I mean, if you're only a reader, chances are I'll have more to recommend the further I get into her catalog, but I definitely check out The Power of Vulnerability, Dare to Lead, and or what was that other one that I mentioned? Braving the Wilderness. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If you guys buy anything through the links in the description, then I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos. And if there are any books you guys want me to check out and review, please, please, please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.